Wow, that's a nice looking reef tank. Got some good diversity here, some nice fish in here, digging the red velvet fairy wrasses, the sohal tang. I wonder how that fish is getting along. They're usually quite mean, but this is a nice grown in reef. So maybe doesn't have all the SPS in the world, but look, we got plenty of big LPS in here, which gives this tank a fair amount of motion. Look, I'm digging what I'm seeing so far. Got a nice clam down in there, nice meat coral in the corner. I would move it out. I mean, why banish that nice meat coral to the corner? You got some Halloween lepto there, nice Duncans, and a confused clownfish. That's in the Duncans. Oh, those mushrooms. I would move those guys. Looks like they're on a rock by themselves. If you can take that whole rock out, do it. They could cause problems. Looks like they're recordias or potentially yumas. That's not the end of the world when it comes to mushrooms, but I'd use this opportunity to get them out of there. You got some red dragon in the back. Again, this is a nice diversity, a nice mixed reef tank. I'm really curious about that sohal. Those guys get quite mean. I'm curious on how it's doing in the room. Some nice wrasses here. Oh, look. Speaking of zoas that get overrun, looks a bunch like eagle eyes there that are cruising around. Again, I mean, this doesn't have to be an SPS tank to make it look good. I'm really digging all the LPS in here with all the motion that's going on. You got a nice torch in the back, some chalices, a Gonopora. He's got some, select SPS. You got this Milka right here in the front, which is a great hardy SPS. Nice gold torch there down in the bottom. I'm digging that. So one thing I'm noticing about this tank is, okay, I would take some rock out of this. It's a little rock heavy for me. I like to have the fish swimming through the rocks more. Maybe it was set up this way. It's not like it's hurting the tank, it's just a personal taste thing. Got some nice green slimers up there, some SPS, some choice SPS. So it looks like some more eagle eyes over here on the right. Again, this is a little different how I would do things. Personally, I would like more SPS. This person likes more mixed reef. Ooh, got some blue mushrooms down there in the corner. I would definitely remove those. They don't look like they've taken over, but go ahead and get them out of there. Your Linkia or your Phromia starfish looks like it's doing good. This has got to be a well-established tank. It's got some legs underneath it. It's doing well. Nice in-wall type of setup. I would change the fish a little bit, mainly with that sohal. Take a little bit of rock out. Personally, I'd put more SPS. Again, that's just my taste. Clearly, this is something nice to look at. Oh, now we're going to see how this thing is lit. Looks like flip up the canopy here. Nice open canopy. That's the first thing I'm noticing about this. There's no divider in the center. He can flip up this thing and get complete access to the top of the tank. I like that. Looks like it's lit by some radions. And one thing I'm seeing right here is he's got one radion directly over that sea swirl. I would move that radion over. It looks like it's on a rail where he can do that. No need to light the top of a sea swirl. Move that guy over, get that light down in the tank. I understand wanting to space them out evenly, but just get it over that, away from that sea swirl. Sea swirl doesn't need light to do its thing. So lighting with some T5s, with some radions, with diffusers. Clearly it's given this reef everything that it needs. It looks really good. Now we're going to move to down below. Holy soft plumbing. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a taste preference. Okay, you've got this nice Neptune Systems Trident, and it looks like it's balanced on the side of the sump there. It's making me nervous. Probably it's not going to fall in, but there's good, look, over 90% of the front of that thing is just overhanging the sump. I would find some way to secure that thing or put it somewhere else. That's definitely making me nervous. Looks like it's got a little Kessel there for a refugium light, some Vectras there for the return pump with a fair amount of check valves. I'm wondering why he feels like he needs the check valves on that. They're not always needed. In fact, I rarely use them. Most of the time you don't need them. But look, I mean, going back to the plumbing here, so it's soft plumbing. It's not my taste. I will use soft plumbing when it makes sense. This guy's still done a good job with this. He hasn't gone crazy with primer. He's got some nice Schedule 80 fittings in here, so he's extra beefy. That's good. A lot of people will ding soft plumbing. There's nothing wrong with it. It can make sense in certain situations. That's just what this guy is using. I'm noticing this little top-off tank here with the osmolator control on it. I'm wondering if this is all this guy has for top-off. Seems like a small top-off tank for that size of tank And he's clearly got room underneath the stand here. I would personally make that top off tank bigger. That way it doesn't have to be refilled as often. And if you go on a town, you've got more leeway for that thing to run empty. I'm seeing a chiller control there in the back. Curious on where that's going to come in. It looks like it's not under the stand, which is good. Hopefully it's mounted somewhere else. All these lines look like they lead to the outside, or at least the fish room that's behind this tank. And he's got a little makeshift stand I'm seeing at the top of the screen here. I'm guessing that's for gear. Oh, here we go. So he's got his Apex stuff mounted above. The stand's giving a little bit of shield against any water splashing as well. So I'm a fan of that. Okay, so let me just back up here. So sometimes you can't avoid this, but it's something that I like to avoid when I can. You've got the drain and return lines coming down from the tank over there on the left, and you've got all your electronics right there. Now, if you do your plumbing properly, it shouldn't suddenly start leaking. And sometimes things get loose, they start to drip, heaven forbid they break, or if you need to take anything out, then you're gonna have all this water right next to your electronics. So I like to plan for worst case scenario. Looks pretty tight under here. I would still try to move these electronics away from directly around those drain and return lines. Just give yourself a little bit of leeway in case something happens to go wrong, especially with these heater controls. They're right there by any potential big leak point. Again, it shouldn't leak, but just in case it does, give yourself the option for that. So it's a little bit of cord management here. Looks like as best as he could in a tight space. Nothing necessarily jumping out other than placement of the electronics. Now, I'm liking this. This guy's got a battery here. Looks like this is a battery backup for some part of his components in his tank. I like having options. Having a battery like this to power heads if the power goes out can get you a long way down the road, especially if you set your power heads up correctly where they're agitating the surface of the water. You'd be surprised how far you can go with just that amount of gas exchange in your tank. Okay, one thing I'm seeing in this photo here, in this video, that's concerning me is we've got all these power bricks stacked up, and they're stacked up on top of one another. Those things can generate a fair amount of heat. When you got all that heat next to one another, it's harder for it to dissipate. To me, that is a bit of a fire hazard. So I would space those power bricks out. Looks like he's got some room here to mount them on the wall. Ecotech makes some nice power brick holders. I would mount them on the wall, give a little bit of space between one another to help them breathe, help them keep cool. But it's good to see that he's done some thinking ahead and he has a battery here as a backup. That's certainly not going to hurt anything. Now, we're going to the outside. This looks like outside. And he's got a cover over which looks like his mixing station. That's cool. He's got a 55-ish, I'm guessing, drum here. Not sure what's in 3 of those cylinders, but he's got his Apex stuff out here. Looks like mixing containers as well. He's even got a skimmer outside. That's nice. You need to clean that thing or it overflows. It's all right outside. I'm digging that. If you don't have a fish room, putting things outside can work. This guy's done a smart thing and he has it covered. I'm assuming it has a front on it as well. I'm also guessing this guy's somewhere in a warm climate, probably Florida, where he can do this. And he's got his RODI system outside. All the stuff that you need in a mixing station in this case is all mounted outdoors. I'm really digging the outdoor skimmer. It's got to give him a fair amount of pH bump because he's sucking in all that fresh air. Not that I really care about pH, but it'd be fun to see if his pH rise higher because he has it outside. And then he's got all those dose pumps crammed there behind the skimmer. Okay, one thing I would do here is I would move those dose pumps or move that skimmer over if you can. Those heads wear out over time. If you need to replace them, you're really going to be cramming your hand around trying to get down to that dose pump to do the replacement. Getting the head on there is one thing, but getting the lines on there while you're crammed in a tight space is another. If you have any chance to move that skimmer away, I would personally do that. You've got a wipe down on the skimmer, so this system has got a fair amount of automation on it that's keeping this thing, I'm guessing, fairly low maintenance on how he has it designed. This looks like the chiller. Okay, one thing I would say about this chiller. One, it's great that it's outside. This is the proper way to install a chiller on a system, is to get it outside of the structure where the tank is housed. That way all the heat that the chiller is sucking out is putting it outside the building. I love it when I have a chiller next to a stand and I just shake my head and go, okay, we're taking the heat out of the tank, throwing it into the room, which heats up the tank, which means the chiller has to run, which heats up the room, and it's this vicious cycle. So props to this guy for having the chiller outside. One thing I would do on this, and the manufacturer would recommend it as well, is put some kind of roof or shelter over this thing, a little doghouse, something. Those things are not made to be out in the elements to get rained on and things like that. So it's good that it's outside, but protect the thing and put some kind of roof over it. You don't necessarily have to have a front on it, but keep the roof over it, keep the water off of it. I'm guessing this house is in Florida, so he needs to keep the elements off of it. All right, one thing that I'm also thinking about, since this house is probably in a warmer climate, he's got pipes going through the wall. When we were looking at the sump on the inside, looks like he had some mesh in there around that opening, which is good. I'm just concerned about how many bugs and potentially rodents can make it through this opening into the house. Maybe that's not a problem, but something I would be thinking about as I designed the system or as I was looking at reworking this type of system. Overall though, look, nice system. He's got some automation in here. He's got some nice things such as the mixing station outside. He's got his chiller outside. Nothing to sneeze at. His efforts show for it in the tank. Nice, very relaxing, grown out reef tank. A couple tweaks that I would make, doing the best that he can with the space that he has. And at the end of the day, sit back and enjoy that tank. Nice work.